All right, we are on. We are on. Welcome to the Royal Roundtable Show, brought to you by Royalty and Power Enterprises. I'm Gabaria. I'm your host. I'm gonna be going in on today's topic, which is self-governing requires a diplomatic mission. I know a lot of people out there in the sovereign movement as a whole, um, they've been questioning this, not really fully understanding the depth of what it means and what it requires to self-govern. So that's what we're going to be going over today. We're going in on what it takes to actually self-govern, the status and capacity you're operating in when you are self governing, and why a diplomatic mission is required in order to obtain a full measure of self government. And without further ado, let's start off with the first one, which is there we go. What it takes to actually establish self government. Okay, so let's go on in on this here. This is 8 USC 110114, which states, okay, that the term foreign state, including outlining possessions of a foreign state, but self governing dominions or territory under mandate or trusteeship shall be regarded as separate foreign states. Okay, so a self governing dominion or territory that is under trusteeship is regarded as a separate foreign state. All right, the trustee will be of the foreign state operating in a diplomatic capacity is therefore known as an ambassador, public minister, okay, who is accredited by this foreign state as the what? Ambassador or trustee. There we go. So that is the basis of establishing your self government. Okay, self governing dominions under trusteeship. Okay, but now we're going to have to get specific into what type of trust. How is this trust set up? How is this structured? Okay, what classification is this trust within? All right, so let us go on over to the concept of the Montevideo Convention. Okay, so the trust, in a sense, has to have a reflection of international law, which is Montevideo Convention, which requires the trust to have a permanent population, a defined territory, a government that is capable of maintaining effective control over corresponding territory, and the ability to conduct international relations with other states as international commerce. Okay, so how is this manifested? First and foremost, it must be manifested within the form substance over form doctrine. This means that any financial statements dealing with the trust of financial operations should reflect the underlying economic reality of a transaction. So it has to reflect something in reality rather than simply a legal structure or form. So, what do they mean by legal structure or form? Let's re break it down. In other words, substance over form means that a transaction should be accounted for based on what it represents within reality rather than how it appears on paper. So, how it appears on paper. Um, Many folks, or what have you, many folks feel this is how do we say? Many folks feel this isn't required. We would say this isn't required. Many folks don't feel like that. They really get the understanding of If you have a foreign trust, just think about this, okay? I'll imagine, walk with me. If there is a foreign trust or a foreign business entity, okay, and this foreign business entity is supposed to be dealing with self government, all right, they want to see some form of reality of actually establishing self government in an international capacity. Okay, so how do you show this in reality and not just put it on paper and just say, okay, well, there's a foreign address, you know, it's pretty much it. I have foreign addresses, some businesses or what have you that have been registered or whatever overseas. But that's not self governing. That's something that's just foreign addresses and registration overseas. So, what is the establishment of the concept of the self governing? Let's get to the self governing part. How do you show this in reality in commerce? Because your trust is operating in commerce as a business entity. Is it if it has an EIN number, which is where we're dealing with the concept of substance over form. So if you have to prove this in taxation arbitration processes, you are capable of doing so. So how do we reflect this in reality? Well, again, let's go back to that Montevideo Convention. Okay, let's go ahead and relook at that real quick. I want us to get a little reflection on this. Okay, and look at the number 4. Okay, the ability to conduct international relations with other states. So, if we're conducting international relations with other states as an ambassador, okay, as an ambassador on behalf of the foreign state you're representing through the establishment of your trusteeship, then, doom, 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 doom. Will you get it? I was waiting for you to say it. I'll say it. Then you should have some sort of career diploma, some sort of diplomatic mission. It didn't flow with me trying to say career diplomat. Okay, you should be a career diplomat. You should be career diplomatic. Okay, just to make it perfectly correspond. All right, what is your career in diplomacy? What are you doing? What is your profession reflecting in diplomacy? All right, let's go over and let's look at the concepts of diplomacy. All right, this is the Vienna Convention here. Okay, the Vienna Convention on April, what is that? April 18th, 1961. Okay, the states, parties to the present convention. So these are the foreign states, the nations at the UN. Recalling that peoples of all nations from ancient times have recognized the status of diplomatic agents. So the concept of having having a diplomatic mission, being on a diplomatic mission, operating as a diplomatic agent, and having diplomatic immunity is an ancient one. All right, one of diplomacy. Diploma C deals with diploma, which is rooted in like scroll deciphering. Okay, so all right, that's going into that aspect. All right, now having in mind, which is like deciphering ancient writings, deciphering writings as a whole, deciphering contract discernment, having discernment in contracting and interacting, okay, through letters and so forth. That aspect of contracting and commerce. That's diplomacy, just to get you some practical view on it. Okay, now having in mind the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations concerning the several sovereign equality of states, the maintenance of international peace and security, and the promotion of friendly relations among nations, believing that an international convention on diplomatic intercourse, privileges, immunities would contribute to the development of friendly relations among nations, irrespective of their differing constitutional and social systems. Realizing that the purpose of such privileges and immunities is not to benefit individuals, but to ensure the efficient performance of the functions of diplomatic missions as representing states. Affirming that the rules of customary international law should continue to govern questions not expressly regulated by the provisions of the present convention, have agreed as follows. So, We're not going to go through all of this because it's a little extensive. We're going to hit some heads. But before we do, let's just pause for the cause and just consider here. All right. Let's just consider. Okay. You need a diplomatic mission. You need a diplomatic mission. Okay. If you're self governing or representing your state, your nation, your foreign state, and somebody else's nation or foreign state, it's just that simple. If you're in somebody else's nation, why are you there? The only way to be there and to have any aspect of immunity is to have a diplomatic mission. And this is why the trust must be carefully constructed to have a correspondence with um, business, your career, your profession, which we are calling your diplomatic mission. Okay. This must be constructed in accordance with the principles of diplomacy. All right, so a lot of us really need to get this concept here. Really get this concept that, all right, if I'm self-governing, I'm representing a nation. If I'm representing a nation in somebody else's nation, I must do so through a career of diplomacy, a diplomatic profession, a diplomatic mission. Okay, just so we can see it from various angles and it make sense. We go what they say, the synopsis, make the connections and you're like, okay, we need them aha moments right now. All right, now let's go on in here and let's look at Article 3. Okay, the functions of a diplomatic mission. Okay, what are the functions of a diplomatic mission? Representing the sending state and the receiving state. So representing your self-government and this country. Okay. Protecting the receiving state in the interests of the sending state of it in the interest of the sending state and of its nationals within the limits permitted by international law. So now, okay, there's just a secondary cruise bomb here that if we if we really think we're going to self-govern, the aspect of self-governance deals with international law. I guess it's going. Okay. The aspect of self-government is dealing with international law. All right. If you're self-governing or moving as a nation, a representative of your nation, the depth, we need to understand the depth of what we're saying. We are self-governing. I'm representing a government. That means no matter how big, small my operations are, I am thinking internationally and moving within an international capacity to internationally contract for the advancement of myself because I want myself to grow and expand and sustain as a government. Okay, so you have to think governmental, all right, which is to some degree monumental, all right. Okay, you had a bigger. So we're dealing with international law. We're studying international law, international diplomacy. Again, we discussed how diplomacy is the discernment of contracting. Okay, this is where we deal with negotiating. Okay, the concept of doing business through paperwork as well. Contracting. And this is what we're saying. Okay, this is it. Representing the sentence, just to recap. All right, because I'm just make sure we all on the same. I get all, into it and, maybe representing the sending state and the receiving state. Okay, so you're representing your government and this government. You're protecting in the receiving state the interests of the sending state and of its nationals within the limits permitted by international law. So you're making sure you're operating in an aspect that is beneficial to your government and the people of your government within the receiving state, the state that you're operating in, this country, with accordance and respect to international law. You are negotiating with the government of the receiving state. Okay. Negotiating to make to show commerce or and how do I say commercial interaction that benefits each other. Okay, so you're going to contract in ways that actually benefit each other. Okay, you agree to do this by these dates, time, so forth, supply the whatever, connect, whatever, contracting is unlimited, whatever you agree on within that sphere industry to benefit each other. Okay, that's what you're going to be negotiating with. Okay, ascertaining by all lawful conditions and developments in the receiving state and reporting thereon to the government of the sending state. Okay, so this would be logging things, considering you're the head of your state. There's not much to or anybody to report to unless you go into your higher self and you're dealing with a metaphysical capacity. As far as this commercial aspect, you're self governing, you're the head of the state, you're the ambassador on this diplomatic mission. Okay. Ascertaining by all lawful means, conditions, and developments in the receiving state. So the ascertaining by all lawful means, conditions, and developments in the receiving state is just in a sense of like no deliberate, you're not acting rambunctiously, riotously, to even be more mischievously, to be more specific. All right, and you're promoting friendly relations between your government and the receiving government, going back into the negotiating and the contract and the commerce. Okay, this is the aspect of needing that diplomatic mission. Okay, the developing their economic. Oh, and the reason here, let me do this again. Promoting friendly relations between the sending state and the receiving state, and developing there, the receiving states, economic, cultural, and scientific relations with yourself. So this means you are in some advancement. You are seeking the advancement of the receiving state while seeking the advancement of your state. So there are friendly relations between your trust, your government, and the receiving government. Okay. And you're seeking to develop, okay, their government while developing your government. So whatever process you're doing to develop your government, it can't be a selfish process. Okay, it has to develop the receiving state's government, culture, economy, social relations, scientific relations, cultural be social relations, things of that nature. Okay. Now there's another one I want to touch on. All right. Let's jump to 22. All right, we in the Vienna Convention, Article 22. All right. The premises of the mission shall be inviolable. So no violations, no trespassing, so forth. The agents of the receiving state may not enter them except with consent of the head of the mission. So is respected as a separate territory. The receiving state is under a special duty to take all appropriate steps to protect the premises of the mission against any intrusion or damage and to prevent any disturbance of the peace of the mission or impairment of its dignity. Okay, so high respect, high regard, deep sense of separation, as well as protection, okay, of whatever premises that is relative to your diplomatic mission. Okay, so the premises of the mission, their furnishings and other property thereon, and the means of transport of the mission shall be immune from search, requisition, attachment, or execution. So that's the concept of having the immunity. Okay, but you need a diplomatic mission. Many people think that they can, how do I say, that they can, this is bothering me, that they can, that they can acquire, that's the word, they can acquire land. And then to think the depth of them thinking they can acquire land with an allodial title or patent. I was thinking of the terms that core because both of them are applicable for people in the processes, people using different aspects in the processes. Um, they can self-govern from the land and that it is completely immune. And without a diplomatic mission, in that sense of self-governing, that is not the case because what is it? Let me see. Land in U.S. Okay, so there is a concept that the United States, the cessation of land, land cannot secede from the United States complete control. Okay, so here, let me get this here. We got cessation. Here, let's just get cessation definition. Let's just get that there. Okay. The fact or process of ending or being brought to an end. Okay, so that's just something ceasing, of course. Then let's get cessation. Wait, before we do that. Cessation. Land. Okay, let's do this. The land in the act of transferring land or territory or rights from one party to another, usually through treaties or agreements. Cessations are often voluntary. Okay, wait, here we go. In the United States, indigenous tribes were often forced to give up their lands to U.S. governments through treaties. These cessations resulted in the displacement of native peoples from their ancestral land. Okay, in international law, secession is a term that is commonly referred to land being transferred by treaties. So this is the one. Secession. Okay. So here, I got what I got here. Boom. Okay. Then we're gonna do this in the United States. Okay. So here, this is the formal giving up of rights, property, or territory by a state. The act of secession is the assignment of a property to another entity. Okay, so and here let's get Ballantyne's. We do, but Ballantyne's Law Dictionary defines secession as surrender, a giving up or relinquishment of jurisdiction. Okay, so it's giving up jurisdiction. Okay, there is no secession in the United States. Okay, see, secession primarily, I get them, secession. Okay, here, we're going to deal with this. All right, this was the one afterwards. Secession primarily refers to the voluntary withdrawal of one or more states from the Union that constitutes the United States. So the states cannot withdraw from the Union. And if land is accumulated by people seeking to self govern, then that state, in a sense, would have withdrawn from the Union. So states cannot withdraw from the Union. Okay, so now let's get secession in the United States. Okay, now we go. Get them. There we go. Okay, secession in the United States refers to the transfer of land from states or countries to federal government through treaties and other agreements. Okay, here, so let's go in. In the late 18th and 19th century, states ceded land to the federal government. Okay, so the federal government is the one saying they own the actual land, like as a whole, and everybody just has degrees of rental rights. But for the at the end of the day, all of the land actually belongs to the government. So this is the concept of people saying the United States is not a landmass. That is not the case. You cannot be within the claims of their jurisdictional landmass and have immunity without self-governing as a ambassador on a dignified diplomatic mission. That's it. And what does dignified mean? One that benefits both parties. Okay. The culture, science, and economy of the receiving nation. Okay, so that's we just wanted to touch on that. Okay, so now let's get this. We just realizing something. Let's just go on in. So imagine you want to self-govern. You want to be your own government. Okay, you can't really buy land and take it out of the jurisdiction, no oversight of the United States completely, um, in the traditional sense. Not even with a lodial title, just showing that, hey, no, but you don't owe anybody. This land can smoothly go from one generation to the next. Patent, okay, you have complete rights to use the land for just about whatever you see fit, as long as you're not hurting the environment or no so forth. So that concept of the oversight of, as long as it doesn't really affect nobody else, is where the sense of another government comes in, which another government has every right in their defense to come in and be involved in any other government's affairs if they feel like those affairs are a direct, you know, degradation to the other government's state of existence. So state of being. So that's just um that's just logical. And you would do so through diplomacy, through some sort of peaceful, friendly aspect or interaction, so that there is no war. Um, but you can't secede from the government. Okay, there is no seceding from the taking a land unless land is completely given the acknowledgement, or a territory or something of that nature. It's completely given the acknowledgement of saying, "Hey, look, that is under diplomatic mission. We don't have no rights in it." So here, let's go on. Let's go on. Okay, so I just wanted us to really think about that, so we can really understand how can you self-govern in another government's government. Okay, in another government's land or jurisdiction or territory, etc. Okay, so then let's look at 23 here. All right, the sending state and the head of the mission shall be exempt from all national, regional, and municipal dues and taxes. Okay, in respect to the premises of the mission, whether owned or leased, other than such as represent payment for specific services rendered. All right, the exemption from taxation referred to in this article shall not apply to such dues and taxes payable under the law of receiving states by persons contracting with the sending state or the head of the mission. Okay, so that doesn't apply to a contractor, somebody who isn't officially with the mission. If somebody joins the mission, they virtually expatriate. Okay, so that's why if you're just contracting as a if there's somebody is a citizen of this country and they contract with the diplomatic mission of your self government, they still wouldn't they would only have that sense of immunity while doing business, or while they are doing business with you, but overall they would still be under the sense of subjection to the government when they're not doing business or partaking in the mission or what have you. And then they would owe taxes and dues, etc., accordingly. Okay, so the archive here, 24, the archives and documents of the mission shall be invoidable at any time and wherever they may be. So the archives and documents, okay, so this is the concept of saying, hey, look, you know, your status correction paperwork is official if there's a diplomatic mission attached to it. That's just it. Um, that's it. Okay, so subject to its laws. I want people to understand that though. So yes, your documents, the archives and documents of your mission, that's your status correction paperwork. They shall be inviolable. Okay, inviolable. So they can't be violated, trespassed against. I mean, they have to be done and handled with diplomacy, in which you use your memorandum, your diplomatic memorandum, your international memorandum, which will be within your foreign, or should be within your foreign irrevocable legacy trust. Okay, the trust of your legacy, the extension, expansion of your legacy or of your self government. Okay, so let's look at 30. Okay, let's look at 30. All right, the private residence of the diplomatic agent shall enjoy the same inviolable and protection as the premises of the mission. So if they're one and the same, they're one and the same. If they're separate, they're separate. But you, your stuff, the property, etc., his papers, correspondence, etc., provide three. His property shall likewise enjoy that. So car, things of that nature. Okay, so you moving separate, operating in a separate capacity. All right, I want us to really, really get that again. This is extensive. Let's go over. Let's go over this here. Let's look at these here. I want to focus on one and two. Now, this is optional protocol to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations concerning the compulsory settlement of disputes done at Vienna. Okay, so if there's disputes, if there's issues, if there's a lack of acknowledgement, this is why you need 4 levels of status correction. Okay, you need 4 levels of status correction. Why do you need 4 levels of status correction? Okay, You need 4 levels of status correction on a county, a state, a national, and an international level. And this is going into the aspect of the international level, okay, of the international level. You need to do that on an international level so that you can be able to implement these international remedies. Okay, so what would these remedies be? Okay, the states parties to the present protocol and to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, here referred to as the Convention, adopted by the United Nations Conference held at Vienna from the 2nd of March to the 14th of April, okay, 1961. All right. It took them a little over a month to get this done, organize this. Expressing their wish to resort in all matters concerning them in respect to any dispute arising out of the interpretation or application of the convention to the compulsory jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice, unless some other form of settlement has been agreed upon by the parties within a reasonable period. Have agreed as follows. So, this is the foundational way to arbitrate, to settle disputes arising out of the application or the lack of application of the Vienna Convention's protocols on diplomatic missions. Let's go ahead and look at Article 1. Disputes arising out of the interpretation or application of the convention shall lie within the compulsory jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. Pause. This is why we have international status correction. This is why there is an international status correction. There needs to be an international status correction, okay, so that you can be able to have, you need to have things properly filed and have done things to represent and reflect your self government so that when you go and file in the International Court of Justice, along with the other international entities, you will be in proper standing to settle disputes. Here we go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at Article 2. The parties may agree within a period of, what is it, a period of 2 months. Let's see. So that's really reasonable. I just wanted to pause right there and stress this. Like, this is talking about within 2 months, then we want to settle issues. Okay, so the parties may agree within a period of 2 months after one party has notified its opinion to the other that a dispute exists. So this is personal arbitration. This is what people are looking for when they personally arbitrate. So this is you being diplomatic with the state, the nation, etc., as best as you possibly can, notifying them that this is a dispute. All right. So to resort not to the International Court of Justice, but an arbitral tribunal. So there should be some arbitration attempted before you come to the International Court of Justice. Like, hey, look, we settle really serious matters. Try to settle that before you come here. Go to a arbitral tribunal. After the expiry of the said period, either party may bring the dispute before the court by an application. So you need to show evidence of your attempt to rectify things. Okay, see, this is how you operate in diplomacy. Let me use some more Jews. Okay, so this is how you show, hey, look, I didn't notify them that a dispute existed. Okay, and then after I notified them that a dispute existed. I sought to have things. I sought to have things fixed in arbitral tribunal. And then nothing, there were, okay, we had an issue, couldn't get things resolved within that 2 month period. We could go ahead and then apply by application, attaching that information to it. So y'all want real administrative remedy. We just gave Jews at the round table. That's what we love to do. We love to give them Jews at the round table. You can always book a one-on-one round table session and get the Jews to rule. Okay, now we keep going here. I really want us to understand what it means to self-govern. Yep, that was it. That was it. I wanted those two. So yeah, I really want us to understand what it means to self-govern, what this process entails, um, the depth of it, like what you have to do, where you have to operate internationally. I just really want to stress to people this is not something that deals with simply birth certificate, because there is a UCC 3604 renunciation, cancellation, and discharge of the birth certificate. But I'm talking about trying to use it in the consumer mind. People are using their birth certificate to try to buy things. Okay. So this is the concept of what we mean by obtaining what? A full measure of self-government. Okay, so just want to wrap it up with one more aspect here so we really get the depth of it. Under what is this, Chapter 11 of the Charter of the United Nations, the non self governing territories are defined as territories whose people have not yet attained a full measure of self government. A full measure of self government. Okay. Why haven't they obtained a full measure of self government? A lot of people are attempting but not obtaining because they are approaching the concept of self government with a consumer mindset and not approaching the concept of self government with a diplomatic mindset, a business handling and advancing mindset. Okay. So that is the issue there. Um, and why we really want people to understand that there is a United Nations that actually is in support of assisting people in self-governing. When the United Nations was established in 1945, 75 million people, almost a third of the world's population, then lived in territories that were non-self-governing, dependent on colonial powers. Okay, so we're talking about government. They have a process to obtain self-government, but you have to obtain a full measure of self-government. Okay, there must be a full measure of self-government so that you can advance and be able to say, hey, look, I'm under the international trusteeship system. Why the international trusteeship system? Well, because I have a foreign irrevocable legacy trust, and this allows me to have a self governing dominion. My dominion is my mission, which is under the mandate of my trust. I'm moving as an ambassador on behalf of this foreign state, this self governing mission. Okay. So that's what we want people to understand and really see the depth of that thing here. Okay. All right. So if you want to really self-govern, you need to have a trust that has a diplomatic mission that is capable of advancing internationally, intended to advance internationally, and intended to advance those it interacts with internationally. So we need to think internationally. Disputes in regards to your status are ultimately handled internationally. So it is the international perspective that keeps things into perspective when it comes to establishing self-government within the land jurisdictional confines of someone else's government. Because people think that the United States is not the land and that it's just a commercial network setup and opportunity. Yet they have submarines and planes and things, and they have a national guard to protect the land. They have a thing called Homeland Security. So leave the facades and actually learn the principles of really self-government, governing on a diplomatic level to establish a government that is international and not just on paper, substance over form. It needs to actually exist and is going to reflect its existence in its operations, which those operations, if within another government's territory, needs to be one of diplomatic relations, diplomatic profession, your diplomatic career, diplomatic business. So you need some sort of diplomatic business. There we go. Just try to convey it. Always try to think of the simplest, most cut so people can get it from. So we need a diplomatic business. All right. That's it. That is the concept of self-governing with a diplomatic mission. All right, y'all. I hope you understood the rules, the rule. Make sure you put your crown on and apply the jewels because they are applicable indeed. I really, really want folks to reflect on this because people be just lost when it comes to the concept of what it means to self-govern. Or I have a foreign grantor's trust because you have a overseas address, and it's like I hope these principles protect your perception. I'm out.